Good afternoon. Thank you for coming today. Today we issued charges against 4 Milwaukee police officers alleging they engaged in illegal searches of individuals detained or in police custody. The investigation was initiated by the Milwaukee Police Department's Internal Affairs Division and has been the subject of an extensive investigation by the Milwaukee Police Department, by my office, and the FBI since March of this year. We decided early in the investigation that it was important to ask the community to come forward with any allegations of mistreatment. The investigation has relied on the work of investigators, cooperation from citizens, and cooperation from police officers who provided critical corroboration of details provided by the citizen witnesses. We made every effort to respectfully address the concerns raised by the citizens, regardless of their past history, and we made every effort to allow police officers to come forward with information to allow us to fairly determine who, if anyone, was engaged in the misconduct and to hold those responsible accountable. During the investigation, it became clear that the mistreatment focused on the actions of select officers from District Number 5, and particularly on the actions of Officer Michael Vagnini. Included in the complaint are 25 separate counts alleging violations of Wisconsin's strip search law, misconduct in public office, and sexual assault. The law has long recognized the need for officers to make reasonable and limited intrusions to a person's bodily privacy while conducting criminal investigations. The more intrusive the search and the closer the search focuses on the intimate areas of the body, the greater the scrutiny and the greater the need to justify and procedurally restrain the search. Wisconsin strip search law is designed to protect both the suspect and the police officers conducting the search by clearly setting forth the rules that regulate such searches. The facts alleged in this complaint are serious breaches of that process. Violations of law are offensive by their very nature and undermine the integrity of police procedures and the trust of the community. As with the investigation, we will continue to work closely with the Internal Affairs Divisions, with our federal partners, to see that those responsible are held to account. And as always, the allegations in the criminal complaint are that there is a presumption of innocence until the case is closed. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Ed Flynn.
You've heard the district attorney make public some very serious charges against 4 Milwaukee police officers. Quite frankly, I'm disgusted by the willful actions of some of the officers in our police department, and I'm appalled by the willful inaction of some other officers in our police department in failing to stop egregious conduct. It's a disappointing day for me. It's a disappointing day for the members of the Milwaukee Police Department, and it's a disappointing day for the city that we are all sworn to protect. The Milwaukee Police Department initiated this investigation. It was the Milwaukee Police Department that worked diligently and conscientiously and aggressively to get to the bottom of this case. During the past months, it was the Milwaukee Police Department that requested that the district attorney invoke the John Doe process, and he has done so and performed a remarkable job. It was our Internal Affairs Division that first detected a disturbing pattern of complaints. These complaints were initiated by individuals who had been arrested by a very small group of officers. This sounded the alarm, and it was ultimately our own police officers who provided testimony that validated these complaints and exposed some of the most egregious conduct. Now, I've said, and our code of conduct states, that we will treat error differently than willful misconduct. There is a distinction. In the last few weeks, we've talked about errors in judgment, and we have talked about ways the police department can improve. But today we're focusing on willful misconduct. Willful misconduct so egregious that the only appropriate response is criminal charges. Crime cannot be fought with criminality. Those who enforce the criminal law must obey the criminal law while enforcing it. The legitimacy of our entire system of justice depends upon that fact. Now, the Milwaukee Code of Conduct for its police department derives from our core values of courage, competence, integrity, leadership, respect, and restraint. These values guide our interactions with the community, and if we violate these values, we have violated the public trust and our own oath of honor. The conduct alleged today is by any definition disgraceful, and it's brought disgrace to the Milwaukee Police Department, and a hard-earned reputation has been tarnished. Through this difficult time, I ask our members to continue to focus on our core mission of creating neighborhoods capable of sustaining civic life. Through the hard, heroic, and unselfish work of our officers working with their communities, we have reduced crime and disorder in our most vulnerable neighborhoods. We must not falter in our continued commitment to the safety of all of our residents. The men and women of this organization have taken and will continue to take risk on behalf of the public good, and every day work to protect this community. Our mission has not changed. The criminal actions of a few does not negate the honorable work of the majority. Our officers continue to serve this city with distinction. To the community, I ask for your continued engagement with your police department and your continued trust. The police and the community need each other. Effective policing depends upon public trust, and public trust depends upon ethical policing. We pledge to continue to strengthen and to continue to work to earn your trust. Lives depend upon it.
We can take a few questions.
Mr. Chisholm, originally, can you be clear as to how many alleged victims came forward in your 7-month-long investigation? And the second part to that, a total of 7 officers and 1 supervisor were suspended. Do we expect more charges?
To dozens of citizen victims and or citizen witnesses to begin with. And in the course of this, we made the conscious decision not to conduct the investigation completely secret. We had to use the John Doe process and the secrecy that attends that process so that we could protect witnesses' identities while we conducted the investigation, so that we could allow police officers to come in and speak the truth to what they did or did not observe. So that was an important part of the process. But we took complaints from dozens and dozens of people and followed up on each and every one of those. The charges that are reflected in the complaint today are the strongest evidentiary charges that we want to present right now. So we followed up on everything, we listened carefully, and these are the charges that we feel we can sustain our burden with at this point in time.
Is your
Jeremy, you have a
investigation
question?
complete? Is it complete or no?
Yes, the John Doe is closed as of yesterday, and this reflects the charges that will be coming out of this John Doe.
What's
Jeremy?
the current status of the officers who have been charged, and also the current job status of the officers who have not been charged and the supervisor?
The officers who have not been charged are restored to regular duty. The officers who are charged have had their police powers suspended. They'll be suspended with pay. We are initiating the internal investigation now, and that will be conducted independently of and not tied to the schedule of the criminal inquiry. And when that internal is completed, we will be recommending findings to the Fire and Police Commission.
Stephanie?
Chief, how are you going to rebuild the trust of the people in the community? They want you to go, they want the mayor to do something about what they think is lack of leadership on your part, and they just want to feel like they can trust the police again. How can you rebuild that?
Well, first and foremost, we have to keep in mind that the community is not a monolith. There are a lot of opinions in our community. There are a lot of communities in our community. And that community trust is basically earned every day through thousands of interactions between individual officers and individual residents. Community-based meetings about crime and disorder continue even as we speak. Every night, one district or another is going to neighborhood meetings about the quality of life in the many constituent neighborhoods of our city. I think most people have trust in the officers they know and work with. Certainly, critical incidents can undermine the public trust, and it's our responsibility to address those appropriately and work to restore that trust. But I think at the district level and at the neighborhood level, there are strong and ongoing relationships between the police and the neighborhoods.
Nick?
John, there's been some allegations by the attorneys, at least for some of the alleged victims of civil rights violations. Is that something that you've had a discussion with federal prosecutors at all involved in this case?
Sure, Nick. Good question, and the answer remains the same as it is anytime there is a circumstance that occurs that there could be a potential oversight function or an actual assistance function from the FBI or the U.S. attorneys. And I want to make it clear, they provided that in this case. They always make a distinction between providing assistance in specific cases, which they are always willing to do, and which they have done on this case and many other cases. And we oftentimes decide where the best venue to charge somebody is, particularly if it involves a police officer case or a larger scale criminal operation. So we have this routine communication. For the broader issues, that's a decision that is generally guided out of Washington, D.C., and the U.S. Attorney has made it clear that there have been no decisions made with respect to that. And any other questions in that regard would have to go to the U.S. Attorney's Office. But I just want to make it clear that the FBI in particular provided invaluable assistance in the course of this investigation, and that is not unusual. That's not just because of this case. It's not just because of other cases that have arisen recently. That has been an ongoing practice for a long time.
John, were there any people granted immunity, sergeants, officers, to give information so that you could help charge these 4 people?
Immunity wouldn't be the correct word for it. In other words, officers have agreed to testify truthfully with the understanding that they observed and were present during some of these incidents. So we have relied on that. We have relied on that process as we would in any investigation, where sometimes you work with the people that have the direct knowledge, and in exchange for that, they may not be charged.
Chief, how much responsibility do you take in this, and do you plan to resign, sir?
Well, first of all, the responsibility I take in this is to hold the agency accountable and to conduct thorough and complete investigations when there are allegations of misconduct. We have done so. And I don't think any police department in the United States should be viewed negatively when that police department discerns misconduct and rapidly moves against it. That's our obligation. There's not a major city in America that doesn't have misconduct that occurs. And the test of the agency isn't whether or not an act of misconduct occurs, it's how the agency responds to it. And this agency responded at every level of the organization, effectively, rapidly, and directly, and has taken appropriate action, and working with the DA is going to see to it that appropriate charges are brought and an appropriate case is brought, both criminally as well as internally. So I don't see any negative imputation to the police department for its response to this issue.
John?
How many cases against defendants have been thrown out because of illegal searches, and are any issues ongoing in terms of prosecutions that you're not able to do of suspected drug dealers because of these searches?
I don't have a total number for you, but there have been cases that we have dismissed because of the involvement of officers in this case. I don't have that total number.
Do you have a
And
ballpark?
I don't. I'll find that out for you. But and the short answer is yes, it's always a problem. No question about it. These officers, any officer, in the routine course of their day, generates a lot of work, and because of that, some of those result in prosecutions. And if any of those officers are then called as witnesses, that becomes potentially relevant information. So that's something that we deal with in the course of these things. And again, not just this case, we had to deal with it in other cases where we've charged police officers, and you deal with that. And you try to track every police officer that has had criminal allegations brought against them, who've been convicted, and we maintain that database and then make sure that information informs our decision on what we do with those cases.
Chuck?
Mr. Chisholm, can you describe where, especially with Officer Bagnini, sort of crossed the line between what was a legal search and what he allegedly did illegally?
I don't want to comment much further than what's set forth in the criminal complaint. And again, as I indicated in my initial statement, this is not a new law by any means. It has been in place for a long time, and it's designed with two goals in mind, and that is protect citizens from unlawful searches and, quite frankly, protect the officers. Give them a framework in which they are expected to operate that everybody understands. Again, this is not downplaying the dangers that are faced by police officers on a daily basis. Everybody understands that, and everyone understands they have to be given reasonable latitude to, while conducting an investigation, determine if somebody is armed, poses a danger to them. After that, we increase the scrutiny that's applied to it. The longer the search goes, the more detailed the search goes, and the closer it comes to private areas, we expect a greater level of scrutiny and procedural scrutiny as well. And that means they have to get supervisors involved, and potentially the court has to become involved the further we go.
These
Latoya?
officers,
Latoya has a question. Do you want me to do it? Let's get to Latoya.
How far back do these complaints date?
2010. And I also want to make clear in saying that by soliciting the public generally to come forward with this information, it became pretty clear to us fairly early in the investigation that the concerns were being directed towards a relatively small group of individuals. That's what I can tell you, and it was a relatively narrow time frame as well.
Last question, Jamont.
these officers, when we speak about, you both talk about Officer Vagnini. How long has he been on the force? Are we talking someone who may have not remembered what the proper training was? Or do we have a veteran officer out there now accused of these allegations?
Everybody involved has been on the force long enough to know better. All right? There is no justification for this. There's no way you can justify it as some kind of inadvertent mistake. The allegations are proven beyond a reasonable doubt. They'll show inexcusable conduct.
Thank you very much,
Ron, I
everybody.
just want to
Thank
be
you for
clear.
coming.
You had mentioned that the John Doe investigation is done, but you used the word, you said these are all the charges that we're bringing for now.
That's correct.
Is there going to be another investigation or additional charges?
No. Before I can issue a criminal complaint and use the information from the John Doe, I have to close that Doe. The law does not allow me to continue to use a John Doe to gather additional evidence against the people we charge. That does not preclude that in the course of an investigation, in the course of other investigations the Milwaukee Police Department's doing or anything else, that additional information might come forward. So you can't preclude that, but this John Doe is closed, and I'm using the information obtained from that John Doe to prosecute this case.
And all
Thanks
the
for coming,
victims in the
everybody.
criminal complaint, were they all African Americans, or were all the officers white?
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.